Welcome back, folks, to another edition of #AskGSM, the weekly Money Mailbag video where I answer your questions from Facebook and Twitter right here in this video forum. Here today wearing my matching black and yellow Nexus hat that I bought in the indie event about a month ago. And this awesome, sick new Rob Van Dam shirt I bought at the amazing Raw that I attended last week in Hartford. More videos on that. They're up here on the channel, so make sure to check those out. But nevertheless, today, July 7th, marks the 1-year anniversary of when I first started this show. So I got to give a big thank you to everyone from Facebook and Twitter for continuing to send in questions over the last year. It's been a big success. Really enjoyed doing it. It's definitely going to be a staple for the rest of the summer. As far as in the fall, when I go back to school, I was able to do it last semester because I had the dorm to myself. Long story short. But next semester, I'll have to wait and see as to where that goes, where my class times are and stuff like that. But for right now, this will be a staple for the next 2 months. That's good news. But nevertheless, a lot of great questions this week. Like I said last week, we had to short some questions. I was only able to answer 4 because I was going to Raw later in the day. I didn't post a Facebook question and get some questions from people on Facebook, so I was unable to do that. But this week we got a whole bunch of questions from people from Facebook and Twitter. So let's get right into them. First one comes from Jared J on Facebook. Is it fair to call Bray Wyatt the new Dusty Rhodes of this era, considering the heights he's reached despite his body type? I'm one of those people that also hates to say that, so-and-so is the next so-and-so, like Dolph Ziggler is the next Shawn Michaels, Sin Cara, Kalisto could be the next Rey Mysterio, stuff like that. I understand that. I don't think Bray Wyatt is like the next Dusty Rhodes or is the new Dusty Rhodes. I definitely see where you're going, and I agree. But it's not like he is an exact replica of Dusty Rhodes, if you know what I mean. He has a bit of Dusty Rhodes in him. Of course, Jake the Snake Roberts, Kevin Sullivan from WCW. A lot of what was that guy's name? Oh man, it's right on the tip of my tongue. I can't remember what his name was. The gimmick that is so like his. He was in WWF. WWF a long time ago. Also used to wear the Hawaiian shirts. I can't remember it off the top of my head right now. I'll probably look it up in a minute. But even still, from Cape Fear, the character from Cape Fear, he's also very relevant of that. Obviously, it's not wrestling related, but Bray Wyatt is a nice mixture of a lot of people from wrestling pasts, specifically Dusty Rhodes and Jake the Snake Roberts. But yeah, I definitely agree. Being one of the best mic workers of this generation, Dusty Rhodes is one of the best mic workers of his respective generation and of all time, of course. Bray Wyatt is quickly ascending up the list of one of the best mic workers in history. And he's only been around a year, so it's really hard to say. But right now, yeah, I could definitely see him being the new Dusty Rhodes like character of this generation, being as big as he is and still succeeding at a very high level. And of course, I think it's funny that you asked that, because not only does this week mark the 1-year anniversary of this show, but also marks the 1-year anniversary of when Bray Wyatt and the Wyatt family debuted on Monday Night Raw on July 8th, 2013. So it's crazy to think it's been a year that they've been on the main roster, but even still, I look forward to what he does in the future. He's done a lot in the last year. He has yet to win any championship gold. But in the last year, we've seen him beat and feud with the likes of Daniel Bryan, John Cena. Looks like he's moving into an awesome feud with Chris Jericho. So I very much look forward to that. But yes, I definitely agree with your sentiment on that. Melody L, her question was, what are your opinions on Santino's retirement? At Ambrose311 from Twitter also asked a similar question, except his question was, thoughts on Santino Marella's retirement? So I'm pretty sure that was a typo, because Santina, she retired a couple of years ago. The dreaded Santino Marella gimmick, good times. But anyway, my opinions on Santino's retirement. I also read that last night when the news broke, that I guess he announced his retirement at a show in Toronto. He is from Canada, despite the whole... I would have never guessed had I didn't find out until a couple years later that he was actually from Canada and he was a Canadian person. He is Canadian, not Italian, as many people perceive him to be, because he's so believable in his role and his accent and stuff like that. But anyway, though, I read about that. WWE, actually just minutes after I'm filming this, just before filming this, I watched the video that WWE posted on their YouTube channel of Santino making his retirement announcement at the show last night at the house show. It wasn't the clearest promo to understand, not due to the accent, but just due to the mic that he used at the show just wasn't properly mic'd, so you can barely understand anything he's saying, so it kind of sucks. And WWE.com also picked up on it. That's what I was waiting for, and they finally did this morning, so we'll see where that goes tonight on Raw. And by the time most of you watch this, Raw's probably already happened, and you know what will happen to Santino if he addresses it tonight on Raw. we'll have to wait and see. But apparently the reasoning behind, and he said this in his promo, behind the retirement is that he suffered so many neck injuries, and I think he just recently suffered his third one. He said he suffered it a couple of weeks ago. Where? I don't know. He hasn't been on Raw in forever. He was in that Money in the Bank qualifying battle royal on June 16th. He wrestled against Rusev the next night on main event. So unless he suffered one of the injuries in one of those matches, I'm not exactly sure because he hasn't really been wrestling at any house shows, I don't think. Or maybe he has, I don't know. But we'll have to wait and see as far as when he suffered the injury. But it doesn't really matter. But obviously, I've never been Santino's biggest fan. Of the character, no. Of the person, I mean, it's stupid to think, like same thing with John Cena, to hate the person, to wish he would die, to wish he would get injured, stuff like that. It's just ridiculous and immature. But the Santino gimmick has never really done much for me. He definitely has made me laugh on a number of occasions. Go back to the Tea Party segment with Sheamus. That was absolute gold in late 2010. The whole Santino thing, as dumb as that was, I found a lot of parts of that funny. And actually, just a couple days ago, I looked it up. The backstage segment when she was fired by Donald Trump on, I think it was June 22nd of 2009. That was a really funny segment, too. He's done a lot of awesome stuff over the years. He's been very successful. He's won a number of tag team titles, the IC Championship, the United States Championship. Do I think that he should have had those titles? No, I don't think a U.S. title run was all that necessary. I think they probably just did that to kind of jump on the bandwagon after Santino got that massive pop at the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view in 2012 when he almost won the World Championship from Daniel Bryan. Imagine how crazy that would have been. But that's probably why he had so much momentum coming out of that. That's why they gave him the championship. And it was a pretty terrible run, but it was what it was. As a person, he deserved it because he's been with the company for the last 7 years. And, of course, a Santino debut in Italy a number of years ago when he won the IC Championship his first night in as a member of the crowd. Also a very big moment. But my opinions on Santino's retirement, he's done it all. Like I said, he's won the tag team titles. He's won the United States Championship. He won the Intercontinental Championship. There's nothing left for the character to do. He's done it all. He's won every possible championship. He's never going to come close to winning the World Heavyweight Championship. So it's only fitting that he retires at this point in his career, because I was just thinking about this a number of weeks ago, that there's really nothing left for him to do. Over the last year, his role on TV has been drastically curtailed because he's done next to nothing on TV. He's hardly appeared. He's taken time off. He suffered a number of injuries over the last 3 or 4 years. So I hate to see anyone go down with a neck injury. I think he said it was his third one. But and it sucks for his career to end in such a way. But as a character, he's done it all. So it's not really like he's missing out on anything. Like a Daniel Bryan, which is also relevant in this situation because people were fearing for Daniel Bryan, who also suffered a neck injury about 2 or 3 months ago. And people are wondering whether his career could be coming to an end. And I don't think so personally. We'll have to wait and see. But that being said, though, it would suck for someone like a Daniel Bryan at his height of his popularity for his career to come to an end. So we'll have to wait and see where this goes. But and I look forward to what Santino has to say on Raw. I highly respect the guy, so it sucks for his career to come to an end in such a fashion. But as a character, I think he's done it all. He's had a very entertaining, amazing run in the WWE over the last 7 years. So thank you, Santino, for all the years of your performance in the WWE, of your service. And I don't think he's done in WWE. I think he's done as an in-ring competitor, which is fine. Like I said, he's done nothing as a wrestler over the last 2 or 3 years. And someone said, and I think he suggested being in the role of a general manager, and I don't think we need any more GMs. So I don't know about that. And I don't know if he would fit in a general manager role. Not a general manager role, that too, but a manager role or anything like that. Maybe commentary. I mean, if Saturday Morning Slam or whatever that show was called, he could fit perfectly on that show. And I think he did do commentary for a while. I never watched it, so I wouldn't know. But maybe he could do commentary for like Main Event or something like that. I don't know. As long as he doesn't goof it up. I mean, I'm not really sure. He's a entertaining character. They can keep him around. Maybe do a talking segment each week on Raw. I'm not really sure, but we'll have to wait and see. But those are my thoughts on Santino's retirement. Justin G, his question was, if the WWE established the Money in the Bank ladder match back in the years of 2000 and 2001, who would you place in a 6-man Money in the Bank ladder match on the roster from 2000 to 2001? You can also include the Alliance. So, of course, not growing up in the Attitude Era kind of hinders me in this question. But 4 to 6 of those guys, and this is kind of a cop-out answer, And a lot of these people are pretty obvious to include in the ladder match. And these guys revolutionized the TLC matchup during the Attitude Era at WrestleMania 16 and 17 and SummerSlam of 2000 as well. So I thought it'd only be fitting for them to include them in this first ever Money in the Bank ladder match 15 years ago. Would have to be the Hardy Boys and Edge and Christian. Those 4 of the 6 are right off the bat. They were the ladder match specialists at the time. I would say Shawn Michaels, but he wasn't on the roster at the time. Bret Hart was already gone. I'm trying to think of who else could have flourished in a ladder match. Like a Rock or a Stone Cold would have been cool, but I don't see them as ladder match competitors. Maybe a Triple H. The other 2 people I just kind of put as random answers. I put down D'Lo Brown. He was really a nothing competitor at the time, part of the Nation of Domination, but I think he could have flourished in the ladder match, as well as maybe even Kurt Angle, who debuted in the year of 2000, I think, or 99, or something along those lines. But his rise to the top was in the years of 2000 to 2001, as well as specifically his King of the Ring win. So had the King of the Ring win not happened, this Money in the Bank ladder match that could have been revolutionized at the time in the years of the Attitude Era could have taken him a step to the next level and given him the World Championship that he eventually won. So maybe Kurt Angle would have been an ideal winner for the first ever Money in the Bank ladder match. But those are the people that I would have included in the Money in the Bank ladder match from the Attitude Era had the idea been around 15 years ago. Andre G, his question was, who would you put in a triple threat 60-minute Iron Man match with one superstar representing WWE, Ring of Honor, and TNA? Great question. It kind of differs because I had someone ask me a couple days ago, who would I do in a WWE TNA Dream match? And that's also another question on today's show, on today's lineup, and I'll get to that in a minute. And usually I would say CM Punk versus Austin Aries. But CM Punk is a difficult one to say, if only because he's under contract with WWE, but he's not an active competitor, and he's probably on his way out. So it's kind of hard to say right now as to whether CM Punk what's the word for it? Ready, if he could be used in a dream match scenario, if he's eligible, so to speak. That's what I was looking for. If so, I would do CM Punk versus Austin Aries. If not, though, I would put Daniel Bryan in CM Punk's place. In Aries' place, you could either leave Aries in there or put in Kurt Angle. I mean, maybe not his current state, probably in his prime. But I'd put Daniel Bryan, Kurt Angle. Well, it would be an amazing dream match if Angle was ever to come over to WWE. And the time is now. I mean, if his contract expires with TNA in September, he jumps ship and maybe does 1 or 2 more matches next year. If he were to have one more run in the WWE, which I'm a huge advocate for, that'd be amazing. But I'd put Daniel Bryan, Kurt Angle. From Ring of Honor, I've only been watching Ring of Honor for the last 2 months. I'm not familiar with the entire roster. Adam Cole is still relatively young, so I don't know about him. Kevin Steen, I almost put in there, and I probably would. AJ Styles, I know he's obviously more known for his TNA run, but I'd put in Styles, Angle, and Daniel Bryan. I think in a triple threat match would be amazing. Kevin Steen and Styles are kind of interchangeable. Kevin Steen is an amazing wrestler who also very well might be on his way to WWE in the fall, or I think in the summer if they sign him. But that'd be awesome. So that'd be my triple threat 60-minute Iron Man match. And speaking of the Iron Man match, I've gotten questions similar before in the past. But I would love to see it return at some point. I think the last Iron Man match we got in WWE was 5 years ago between Cena and Orton, not counting that like one-off match between Triple H and Curtis Axel I think it was last year on Raw. It never even got started. It was just comical for Triple H to even announce an Iron Man match. It was hilarious. But anyway, though, yeah, I would love to see the Iron Man match return. I digress, but even still, just getting that out there. Paul S., his question was, if Hell freezes over, what WWE TNA Dream match would you book? So, yeah, basically a very similar question. But it's amazing because as you asked this question, I was thinking in my mind, just 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, I almost created an entire list, even dating back to like 2011, of a list of dream matches that you can do between WWE and TNA. TNA's roster is still very much strong, but it's dwindled a lot in the last 2-3 years with so many people leaving. With Sting gone, Undertaker would be an obvious one, but Sting's no longer in TNA, so you can't do that. Abyss and Kane are past their primes. That'd be a match I would do, but they're past their primes. It'd be like a dream show. It would have been a dream show to do a WWE TNA dream card, a clash of the two different companies at one point 5 years ago, maybe even 10 years ago. But right now, no, because TNA's roster is so out of whack with WWE's. I'm not saying it's not on the same level, and it's not to an extent, I'm not just saying that as a WWE fanboy. I'm just saying that as the honest to God truth. They've lost so many people. They don't have that many strong competitors at the top of the roster. They still got Bobby Roode, James Storm, Jeff Hardy, frickin' Willow, unfortunately. Austin Aries, Samoa Joe, Eric Young. There's a lot of great competitors in TNA. Don't get me wrong. A lot of talented people. The roster is just not what it was from a number of years ago. But anyway, to answer your question, what WWE Teenage Dream Match I would do, like I said, if Punk is still eligible in this conversation, I would do Punk versus Aries. I think they had a couple matches in Ring of Honor. I know for a fact they had a couple matches in Ring of Honor because one of Punk's last matches in that company was with Aries. He won the ROH Championship, I think, from him and kicked off the Summer of Punk in 05. And that's a whole other story for another day. But like I said before, I would probably do Daniel Bryan versus Kurt Angle in his prime. I think that could be an amazing matchup, and I hope that comes to fruition if Angle does come over to the WWE at some point in the next few years, hopefully next year, once his contract with TNA expires. Next question comes from Ross S. His question was, what do you think made WrestleMania 29 one of the worst WrestleManias of all time? I don't think it was worse than WrestleMania 27. A lot of people said it was one of the worst Manias of all time. And it was. I definitely agree. WrestleMania 29 wasn't as bad. It's just that WrestleMania 27 was a disappointment. WrestleMania 29, going into it, because here's the difference between 27 and 29. 27 had this major build-up being billed one of the greatest Manias of all time. And they do that every year, but they really drove that home going into 2011's event because The Rock had come back. The Miz was at the top of the card, feuding with Cena, and a very entertaining feud, might I add. The match didn't deliver, but the feud did, I thought. Edge and Del Rio were having a good feud. Christian came back. Undertaker and Triple H were having a good feud going. So the build going into the show was awesome, and I was pumped. And the show just was so bad, I didn't care for it because the main event sucked. Edge and Del Rio, what would be Edge's final match ever, was in the opening match of a WrestleMania for a world title, might I add. Undertaker and Triple H had a great matchup, but my standards, in my personal opinion, I'm in the minority on this one. I thought it was a boring match. And I thought the WrestleMania 28 match blew that match out of the water. And that's just my personal opinion. But anyway, WrestleMania 29, just the build going into it sucked, and the show itself sucked. I mean, we've had far worse WrestleManias, like 27, for example, WrestleMania 9, and I can go on and on and on. WrestleMania 29, what made it so bad was that it was so damn predictable. And sometimes, don't get me wrong, predictability isn't always a bad thing. But in this case, it was. Rock and Cena, I love the WrestleMania 28 match, also in the minority on that one. I really enjoyed that matchup. Maybe not from a technical standpoint, but from a pure enjoyment standpoint and storytelling, I loved it, especially the finish. The WrestleMania 29 match was just a big clusterfuck of finishes, reversals, and a whole bunch of other shit. I didn't enjoy that match at all. What else was on that show? Del Rio and Swagger had no place on a WrestleMania card. Not even on a B pay-per-view I would do that match. And I know they were building up Swagger at the time, but you knew that he wasn't going to win the world title, especially after he effed up and got the DUI and got busted for weed and all that kind of shit. And you knew that he wasn't going to win the world title. That was a joke. Undertaker Punk was the only saving grace of that show. That was the only reason, the only sole reason I would go back and watch that show, if only for that matchup. But the reason why WrestleMania 29 sucked so much was because the build was terrible. And like I said, it wasn't a disappointment that met my expectations, but in a bad way, in that nothing built towards the future. It's a bad sign when your WrestleMania post-Raw overshadows Raw. And I know that was the case this year with WrestleMania 30 and WrestleMania 28. But 28 and 30 I thought were both great events, and they didn't overshadow WrestleMania. They were on the same level, in my opinion, of being awesome and just being purely amazing. WrestleMania 29, the next night's Raw, just blew it out of the water because 29 did nothing to build towards the future. I know Cena hadn't held the championship in a year and a half, and I wouldn't even call it fresh to see him as champion again because you've seen it so many damn times. So to see him as WWE champion for, I don't know what it was at the time, 11th, 12th time at the time, it was just not fresh. I had no incentive to see Del Rio as world champion any longer, and Ziggler cashed in the next night. Undertaker beat CM Punk. Okay, same thing as always. Great matchup, but the result was predictable, and we didn't really have anything building towards the future in that matchup. But there really was not anything on that show that made me want to tune in the next night or continue to watch going forward because there was nothing exciting or fresh. So that's, in my opinion, that's one of the major reasons why WrestleMania 29 bombed, in my opinion. And thankfully, WrestleMania 30 blew it out of the water, as did WrestleMania 28. And maybe if 28 wasn't so good, and maybe I wouldn't be so down on 29. But 28 was so damn good, in my opinion, the best WrestleMania. WrestleMania 30, in my opinion, was better and overall a bigger event with the returns of Stone Cold, Rock, Undertaker's streak breaking, Daniel Bryan winning the championship in the main event. A lot of great matches. Cesaro winning the Battle Royal. I thought WrestleMania 30 was better than WrestleMania 28, but if WrestleMania 28 wasn't so damn good, then it probably wouldn't be as down in WrestleMania 29. So the next question comes from these Twitter questions now. At Tony Keeger, his question was, what do you think Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins will do at Battleground? Good question. I was also thinking about this a couple of days ago. I wouldn't go so far as to give away Ambrose versus Rollins in a singles match at the pay-per-view. I would definitely save that for SummerSlam. And I hope they do the same thing with Jericho and Bray Wyatt. I hope they do that match at SummerSlam and not Battleground. Keep the matches fresh. Like with Money in the Bank last year, Money in the Bank was a perfect July pay-per-view because you didn't have to give away any big matches. You just put the people that were feuding at the time in the Money in the Bank ladder matches, and that built towards the SummerSlam pay-per-view. So that's why I thought it was so perfect in the July spot. And now that we had that in June and we have this in July, it just kind of throws everything out of whack. So that being said, though, I hope they don't put them in a singles match, but I was trying to think of what else they can do. And they already have Orton and Kane in other matches, so it's not like Dean Ambrose can face Kane or Orton or whoever else. I'm just not exactly sure what other options they have for either guy. And maybe if they do a singles matchup, maybe one of them will win, and they'll do the rematch a couple days later or a month later at SummerSlam, give the other one his win back, and then build towards a rubber match, maybe in Night of Champions or in another episode of Raw. But to give away the singles matchup at Battleground, I think it would be a mistake because it's such a big blockbuster match that it's too big to give away at Battleground. So hopefully, so to give you an answer, I don't know what they'll do with both guys at Battleground. Maybe they put them in the Battle Royal for the IC Championship. That's kind of low on the card for both those guys to be in, considering they main evented SmackDown, main event, and Raw over the last number of weeks. But maybe you could do that. They eliminate each other, and that builds toward the match at SummerSlam. I just don't know what else you could do with either guy, seeing how two potential opponents for Ambrose, being Orton and Kane, are already in a match at Battleground in the form of the WWE World Heavyweight title match. So we'll have to wait and see. Probably by the time you watch this after Raw tonight, we'll find out what role these guys will have at the pay-per-view later this month. Next question comes from at the Innovator. His question was, do you think it'd be cool for Gangrel to come back to WWE to manage someone like Solomon Crowe and use the Brood's theme? Gangrel was pretty notable. I think the only reason why he was notable in WWE was for the Brood. So for him to come back on his own would be weird. I was never a Gangrel fan, but from what I read, I think WWE almost brought him back in 2006 as a part of the Vampire stable with Kevin Thorne, I think, and Ariel on the ECW brand. But that never came to fruition. So, no, honestly, I don't think Gangrel is relevant enough in today's age where I think he could fly as a manager. It would be cool, and I just don't think they should have another second coming of the Brood. It just wouldn't fit in with in this day and age with today's PG product. And I'm not saying the Brood was inappropriate, but like the blood and stuff like that, it's just not the same. So you can't create another Brood. So I wouldn't even use the Brood's theme music, as awesome as it was. Much like if I were to create another Nexus, I wouldn't even use the old Nexus theme because it was so great. You don't want to tarnish the legacy of the original incarnation of the group, faction, whatever. So, no, honestly, I mean, I wouldn't be against Gangrel coming back and managing someone like a Solomon Crowe, who I have seen bits and pieces of. I've never watched him on the Indies before, but I saw a clip of him attacking like Kalisto in an NXT event as like the hacker or something like that. From what I read, they've completely repackaged him, and he's not the same as he doesn't have that gimmick anymore. And they're just doing a completely different direction with him. And I'm not sure when he will debut in NXT. Hopefully it's soon. But it would be cool. But I think Solomon Crowe, from what I've heard and from what I've seen, is a strong enough talker that he doesn't need a manager. Like I said, would be cool. Wouldn't be against it. I just don't prefer it. Next question comes from at Cody Collier 12. His question was, if you were able to choose the WWE Hall of Fame class for 2015, who would be inducted in it and why? I've gotten this question probably a handful of times over the last number of months, which is okay. And my Hall of Fame class changes every time. I don't have a set in stone class that I would do. But just thinking off the top of my head, no, not all of these people are going to be inducted in day one, in like one class. You should probably space them out and because a lot of these guys are big names, and one of them is going to be the headliner. and you should do the headliner like a Randy Savage the next year and Sting one year. You know what I mean? But people that I think should be into the Hall of Fame, and I forgot to write them down on this list, but I'll include them anyway. Rick Rude is a definite. Owen Hart, Randy Savage, The Rock, I think is due for induction. The thing that Stone Cold and The Rock were in the business for the same period of time in Austin. He retired he officially retired 10 years ago, and he was inducted in the Hall of Fame 5 years ago in '09. And Rock has yet to be inducted, even though they were in the WWE for the same period of time, had the same amount of success. Maybe Austin a little bit more. Outside of wrestling, Rock's been a megastar, but they probably knew that he'd be back at some point, and he wasn't done wrestling. I think that's why Bob Backlund declined his Hall of Fame induction, was because he wasn't done wrestling from what he claimed, and that's why he didn't want to be inducted. I don't know. That's Bob Backlund for you. Big fan of Backlund. I'm just saying. I don't know. But anyway, I think Rock's due for an induction. The Freebirds, I don't know how they weren't inducted this year, but induct them. Sting, I think, is another big one they should do at some point, probably next year since they'll be in California. Are they in California? They're in Santa Clara, I think, next year. And also Jim Johnson. I mean, I think Ultimate Warrior mentioned this in his Hall of Fame speech, but WWE should create a wing of the Hall of Fame, much like they have for celebrities, for backstage personnel. I forgot the name that he mentioned, but people like, Jim Johnson I would include for all the contributions he's had over the last number of decades in the WWE, for all the great themes that he's come up with, he's created. He'd be a big candidate to induct into the WWE Hall of Fame at some point. And I would put him in next year as the first one into that wing of the Hall of Fame to induct WWE personnel. So that'd be my Hall of Fame class for 2015. Like I said, it's a lot of headliners in that class. I wouldn't induct them. I wouldn't induct all of them all in the same class, but those are people I think are due for a Hall of Fame induction. All of them are worthy. Owen Hart's long overdue. Randy Savage is an obvious one. Need to say more. The Rock, I mean, I think that's just a definite too. It's just a matter of time. Freebirds, one of the best stables of all time. And I'm just kind of answering the why portion of your question here. Sting had an amazing career in WCW, and don't say that because he's never competed in WWE that he doesn't belong in the WWE Hall of Fame. I've had people say, well, he doesn't belong in the WWE Hall of Fame. He's done nothing in WWE. Well, then what about Abdullah Butcher? I've had people say, well, because he's a joke. Okay, so if it's already a joke, then why not just keep it a joke by having Sting on? You know what I mean? So I'd put Sting in there and Jim Johnson as well, because he has created so much music over the past number of years, has such a big impact in WWE, more ways than one, that I would think that he's worthy as well. Athlete Justin Godsey, his question was, what are your thoughts on the dirt bike look of Justin Gabriel, and do you think inter-Airstrike tag team between Gabriel and Tyson Kidd could but return in NXT? The new look of Justin Gabriel, I don't really have a preference for it, whether the way he looks. I think I've grown numb to Justin Gabriel's look. I'm not saying it's bad, but I'm just saying like it doesn't really have as much of an impact nowadays, because Gabriel, if you recall, I think maybe in Nexus and maybe when he was on his own and turned face about 3 years ago, but he changed his look like every single week. This guy would have a new freaking haircut. He would grow his beard, shave it off. He'd add stubble, have a full length beard. It'd be weird. He changes his look so much that I just grow numb to him changing it every single week. But to answer your question, I think Justin Gabriel is a highly underutilized talent. That goes without saying. And now that he's a heel in NXT, I think he's better as a babyface. There's a lot of untapped potential of him with him as a babyface. Same thing with Tyson Kidd. But like I said in my NXT review on my website, if they're not going to do anything with these guys in the main roster, and I don't think they should do anything with them in NXT, like give them a championship or anything, that's shows for rookies, keep it for rookies, and then just bringing these guys to have great matches, then just turn him heel. I think it might have more of an impact. His turn was a bit weird in that it wasn't really built towards. I know they had a backstage segment earlier on in the night, but it wasn't really built towards. It hadn't been built up for weeks or anything like that. So that didn't really have much of an impact as I would have hoped. But it still is cool for Gabriel to see him doing something fresh and do something new for a change. For the tag team to reunite in NXT between Gabriel and Tyson Kidd, I think it's a great idea. WWE, I think the main roster could use them as a tag team because their tag team division is floundering at the moment because so many tag teams have broken up since the start of the year. But for them to reunite, maybe you take the titles off the Ascension, you put Gabriel and Tyson Kidd in a feud against whoever the tag team champions are. Maybe I know there was a new babyface tag team that debuted not too long ago. I know the Vaudevillains are heel, but I could have sworn there was Enzo Amore and Colin Cassidy. Maybe you do a feud between those guys. That'd be great. Enzo Amore is just so freaking entertaining. I would love to see tag team goes around his way. But yeah, I think they might as well utilize him if the main roster's not going to use him. Might as well utilize them in NXT as a tag team. They're both better on their own. I think that goes without saying. I think Tyson Kidd has been doing the best work of his career in years. Right now in NXT in his matches with Sami Zayn and Adrian Neville and all those kind of guys. And Justin Gabriel hasn't done anything in the longest time, and it's finally revitalizing his career with this heel turn. So I think it's a step in the right direction for both guys. I think it'd be great if they reunited and then NXT went after the tag team titles. At ESPN Michaels Jr., his question was, what is the greatest surprise / upset of all time in WWE history, and where does Santino's debut rank among that? Very good question. Greatest surprise / upset. I don't know if you mean like greatest, like most shocking loss or greatest surprise and like the biggest return of all time. I just kind of took it as like biggest upset of all time. That's the way that I'll answer this. I still think the greatest upset of all time is 1-2-3 Kid defeating Razor Ramon in the episode of Raw. At the start of Raw, back in in its early years, it launched the career of 1-2-3 Kid, now known as Sean Waltman, aka X-Pac, and Razor Ramon. Now the two are good friends to this day. So it really was one of those first big moments on Monday Night Raw in its infancy, and it really set the stage for the career of Sean Waltman over the next 20 years. So I still think that that's one of the biggest upset, if not the biggest upset victory of all time. Also on that list, I would put The Rock and Hurricane Helms on an episode of Raw in 03. I think in one of Rock's, if not Rock's last Raw matchup in his career. I mean, it was kind of overshadowed by everything else going on, but people to this day still talk about that. And it's just funny to even think about. But yeah, the Hurricane Helms defeating The Rock and also Maven defeating The Undertaker, I think was also a very underrated moment. I mean, Maven, he's a forgotten superstar by this point. But a lot of people fail to remember that he eliminated The Undertaker in one of the biggest shocking upsets in Royal Rumble history. And I think the Royal Rumble maybe 01 or 02, 03, I forgot what it was. And just him defeating The Undertaker, and I think on an episode of SmackDown, maybe that same year, I'm not sure when it was, for the Hardcore Championship. So those are my three biggest upset victories of all time. Where does Santino's debut rank among that? I would definitely put it in the top 10. I don't know about top 5, but top 10, it also set the tone for his career as an underdog. It was a very big moment for those in attendance. He's not even really Italian, but it was a big moment for those in attendance to think that, wow, we just saw a member of the audience win the Intercontinental Championship from one of the most dominant heels in the business today, Umaga. So that was a pretty big moment. It set the stage for Santino's career, made him into a bona fide superstar for the remainder of his run. 7 years later, finally retiring. But yeah, I think it's definitely in the top 10, definitely up there in the top 10. I don't even know if I would put it in the top 5. If it would be in the top 5, it would be number 5. But yeah, it's on that list. It's one of the best upsets of all time. Not the greatest, of course. Not by a long shot. The other three, I think, top that one. But it's on there, though. At Raw's Gibby, his question was, who are some former wrestlers you would like to see return as managers? Good question. 3 I would have return. Ric Flair is an obvious one. No, not for The Miz, but for Dolph Ziggler. I'm a big Miz fit, but I don't think Flair and Miz are a good pairing. I don't think they just don't have good chemistry together, especially as baby faces. And Ric Flair is a heel. It was very entertaining in TNA, and he's always been a better heel than a babyface, but he's just so freaking beloved that you just can't turn him heel. So Flair and Ziggler is, I guess, something the WWE doesn't want to do, and even Flair has admitted to that in like autograph signings when people have asked him about it. But Flair and Ziggler is a dream pairing that I would absolutely do. I'd also bring back Jake the Snake Roberts. I don't know, and I think someone asked me about this in another edition of the show, and I don't know, a while ago. I'm not really sure. But Jake the Snake Roberts, I'm not really sure about, if only because I don't know if he can handle the road life and stuff like that. He's finally doing well. He's sober now. I don't think that bringing him back on the road full time, maybe it's only for Raws and stuff. I don't know. I don't know if he would be included in house shows. But it would be pretty cool to see him back in the fold and managing someone like a Bray Wyatt. Maybe not a Bray Wyatt. He's better on his own. Maybe like a Luke Harper when they break up, or an Eric Rowan, or just Harper and Rowan as a tag team. Either way, I think that'd be great. JR, I think, suggested that on his podcast a number of months ago. I thought that was a great idea. So Jake the Snake Roberts. And a personal bias pick of mine would be William Regal. I think he's obviously still in the company, but I still think that he has something to offer in some sort of regular role on TV, whether it be as a GM, as a frickin' commentator. Get Jerry Lawler out of there and put Regal in instead, please. They're never going to do that, but I'm just saying it'd be much better off. But even as a manager, maybe I think Bad News Barrett's fine on his own now, but I don't really know who comes to mind, but maybe an English talent or Drew McIntyre would have been perfect, but he's gone now. But even still, I think William Regal would be a great manager. He has something to offer. He can talk. He can wrestle every once in a while if need be. But yeah, Regal, Roberts, and Ric Flair, my top 3 picks as managers or former wrestlers that I would love to see as managers in WWE. Next question comes from @Ambrose311. His question was, what do you think of Stardust gimmick, and where do you see the gimmick going? I've been saying this since day one. It's been about 3 or 4 weeks since the character debuted, and I'm still determined. My opinions really haven't changed. And going to the Raw last week, I found myself cheering the Stardust character, not because of Stardust, but more so because of Cody Rhodes. I'm a big Cody Rhodes fan. I think he has a lot of untapped potential, and I'll get to that in a minute. But he was over. The people gave him a very good reaction when he came out. Maybe part and due with that was due to Goldust being with him, and Goldust is over. But the Stardust gimmick, when he came out, when his music hit, he was over with the crowd at the Raw that I went to last week. I don't know about other Raws and live events and stuff like that, but the people at the show that I went to last week in Hartford, that everyone cheered for him, so I don't know. But personally, I'm just not buying it. I think Cody Rhodes is just better off on his own, and I think a prime example of Cody Rhodes being over on his own as himself, that, just rewind to last year. Money in the Bank 2013, the guy was climbing the ladder, almost won the briefcase, and it's just funny to even think about because Damian Sandow won the match, and look where he is a year later. But he almost won that matchup, and he was freaking over. They were chanting his name like crazy, and that turned him babyface. And I think he could be a great babyface. I've always thought he's better as a heel, but it was just so fresh, and finally to see him as a babyface because he had been a heel for so long. So I think there's still a lot of untapped potential in Cody Rhodes as himself. And I think they can get into that at some point. He's only 29 years old, so it's not like it's the end of the world if he doesn't turn back into Cody Rhodes in the near future. I hope they do. But my biggest concern is this, and I haven't seen a lot of people talk about this. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm being illogical here. I have no idea. But here's the thing. Goldust's contract expires around SummerSlam, the next month or so. Okay? And based off what he said and what I believe, I don't think he's resigning, nor should he, because if he stays around any longer, they'll probably break up him and Cody, and Goldust will become a joke, and he'll be jobbing on superstars again like he was in 09, 2010. And I think that he should probably just go out on top. So once Goldust leaves after SummerSlam, what do you do with Stardust? I don't want to see a second coming of Goldust. It was so great. It was such a great gimmick, and it's been around for so long, and one of the most successful gimmicks of all time was because it had lasting power. I just don't want to see the second coming of that gimmick. He's never going to be Goldust. Let's face that, obviously. But it's just too similar, the mannerisms, and Cody's making it work. He's dedicated to the role. But why not just make him Cody Rhodes and just give him a push as Cody Rhodes? He's over. I understand someone like a Michael McGillicuddy. He's not over as Michael McGillicuddy. That was a dumb name anyway. So they repackaged him. He's still not over. But in an attempt to get him over, they repackaged him. Cody Rhodes is over on his own, so I just don't see the point in rebranding him because he wasn't at like the lowest of lows. Yes, he was losing a lot of matches, but that's because WWE is booking him in a fashion to set up his heel turn. And as much as I want to see him as a babyface, I think him as a heel would be light years better, no pun intended, than him as Stardust. I mean, he might not be as over as a heel because people want to cheer Cody Rhodes, but as Stardust, I just don't see it having lasting power. And I said the same thing as Los Matadores, and look where they are a year later. They're not doing anything. And I don't think they should be. They're a joke gimmick, and Stardust is a joke. I just don't know what to think about the gimmick. I don't think it has lasting power. Maybe I'm in the minority on this one. Maybe I'm in my own boat here. But I'm in the boat where Stardust doesn't have lasting power. I just don't see the guy winning any titles outside of maybe the tag titles again with Goldust. And after Goldust is gone, I just don't see what purpose it serves. It's a joke. So I just want to see him go back to Cody Rhodes before the end of the year at least. And if not, hopefully at some point soon. Heel, babyface, doesn't matter. Just strip him of the gimmick. It's over, like I said. It's not like the crowds aren't reacting, but he's just so much better off as himself. And he can't win a world title that he deserves as Stardust. So those are my thoughts on that. Final question comes from RJ, my co-host from Wrestle Rant Radio. His question was, who do you think should win the Intercontinental Championship Battle Royal at Battleground and why? It was RJ's question last week, and when he asked me if Bray Wyatt should win the IC Championship. And of course, that was before the Battle Royal was announced. And I don't think they'll be in the Battle Royal. I don't see them putting Bray Wyatt and Jericho to build towards that feud. I'd much rather do Jericho versus Miz, to be honest with you, and do that at Battleground, and then you do Jericho versus Bray Wyatt at SummerSlam. They're doing Miz versus Jericho tonight on Raw, so we'll see where that goes, and that should be a very good match. I've always looked forward to that. But that being said, though, who should win the Battle Royal? Bray Wyatt would be a good candidate, but I don't see him being in the Battle Royal, so I'm going to have to say no on that. Cesaro is the favorite, and I would love to see him as the Intercontinental Champion. But I just think that he's above that title. Maybe him winning it, like with Sheamus, he's above the U.S. Championship. But him holding it brings credibility to the belt, and it makes it suddenly feel a lot more prestigious. So maybe they could do the same thing with Cesaro, and he can have a lot of good feuds, and especially with debuting Sami Zayn. I've said this before a number of months ago when the tournament was going on for the Intercontinental Championship to crown a new #1 contender for the title, that Cesaro should win the title, and Sami Zayn, after a long reign with the championship, Cesaro can drop the title to Sami Zayn, a debuting Sami Zayn on Raw in like 1, 2, 3 Kid, Razor Ramon fashion. I think that could be amazing, especially in like Canada if that was to take place or something like that. That'd be amazing. But that being said, I think Cesaro should win. He's the heavy favorite to win right now. Damian Sandow's a joke. Khali, obviously not. Ryback, no. I'm just trying to think. Kofi Kingston, the last thing he needs is another championship. After holding the title 4 times, it's not going to get any more important if he's holding the championship. And a lot of his last few reigns have been transitional anyway, so I don't want to see him win. I'm trying to think who else is in it. Dolph Ziggler, I wouldn't mind. Cesaro's never held the Intercontinental Championship. That's why I kind of want to see him win it. Ziggler's held it before, but not for at least, I think, the last 4 years. 3.5 years, I think. So Ziggler winning it would be awesome, and he could have a lot of great matches, as we saw with him and Bad News Barrett a couple weeks ago on Raw. So I would love to see Ziggler win it or Cesaro. Who should win it? That's what your question was. Cesaro. I think he's in a high enough place in the card where it makes sense to give him the belt. He can bring credibility to the belt, and it can kind of serve as something for him to do. And I hopefully it's not like a Dean Ambrose thing where he never defends it. Hopefully he can have strong matches as champion, and it can kind of serve as something temporary for him to do before he goes on a turn babyface, and hopefully feud Brock Lesnar later this year or early next year, probably early next year. I just don't think he's ready yet for that kind of matchup. But yeah, I think Cesaro should win that matchup, if only because he's high enough on the card where he brings credibility to the belt. He can have great matches, and just think about the series of matches that he and Zayn can have over that belt if it were to happen. Oh my God, I get goosebumps just thinking about it because it could be amazing. But yeah, Cesaro should win the Battle Royal in my opinion. So that's going to do it for this week's edition of #AskGSM. Once again, thanks for sending in the questions. Always appreciate it. If you want to send in a question, make sure to tweet me on Twitter with the #AskGSM at WrestleRant, or leave a comment on the wall, my Facebook wall, at Graham GSM Matthews on Facebook. I usually leave up a question asking for people's questions on Sunday nights. So you can leave a comment on that post when it comes next Sunday. Or you can leave a comment on this video, and I'll be sure to include it in next week's video with my thoughts on and with my answer to your question. So once again, guys, always appreciate your viewing. Thanks again for 1 year of #AskGSM. Here's to another number of years with this show. The future is in question as far as the fall goes, but for the rest of the summer, it will be around. So always appreciate you guys supporting the show with your questions. It means a lot to me. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. I'll be back next week with another video. Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch you guys down the road.